Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing? Time to be at Mowers and Blowers again. This is a Craftsman 522 snowblower that I got for free. That's right, free, from my friend Sam over at S&L Brothers, local landscaping company here in Huntington. As you know from yesterday's video, he gave me two. One was a Toro 522 as well. That one needs a lot more work and it's missing some parts. But this one, after going through it, I started this up with just a primer. You know, there was a little bit of gas in there, gas vapors. I just pressed the primer a few times and it started up and ran for a little bit, you know. So I think the carburetor is pretty clean. The gas tank's pretty clean. There's nothing clogging the fuel delivery system. But as you know, we also tried the starter. Starter didn't work, even though it worked and it cranked, right? But I don't think that the gear on the shaft is being pushed up to make contact with the flywheel. So that's a very common problem when something sits for a long time. The rust builds up on the shaft, and therefore when the motor is turned on, it doesn't allow, there's not a smooth little shaft where the gear pushes forward and makes contact with the flywheel to turn it, you know. So usually you can fix that by just removing the starter. It's usually 4 or 3 bolts right there that you just take off, and basically you'll take some penetrating oil and you'll grease the shaft a little bit, you know, kind of work it back and forth with your hands manually with like a flathead screwdriver. Just move it back and forth, make sure it's smooth on the shaft, you know, kind of take away some of that rust buildup that was on the shaft during that time of inactivity. So we're going to try and do that. At the same time here, this works for the auger engagement, but the other side, as you can see, there's a makeshift type of wire that the guy made, and it doesn't exactly work well, you know. So I'm going to try to find another drive cable to engage the drive system here. Once I get that finished, we're going to put some gas in there. I'm going to see if this fully functions as a snowblower. So I actually did not have the exact wire cable that runs the drive. So I used the existing cable that the guy that had this before me made, and I just slipped it through to the part here. So when I do engage it, it does move upwards about 1/2 inch. It doesn't work exactly like it's supposed to, but as long as it engages that assembly upwards, like this one, which is spring-loaded. See how it moves just about 1/2 inch upwards? This part right here. That engages the auger. This one engages the drive. And now that I connected it, it does move upwards. We'll see if that'll do. If not, we'll try to fix it. Okay, now here we're at the level of the starter, and it looks like it's just 3/8 bolts that hold the starter. There's this piece here that also holds the gas tank. It goes on top over it. And here is the starter. And as you can see, it's very rusted. There's a better shot of it. I'm going to connect the power to this thing, and I'm going to show you how it spins, okay? So watch how it spins. Okay, so what happens is this part here, when you have the engine on, or the motor, when you're engaging it like this gear is supposed to slide to the left, pull down, so that when it pulls down, it the teeth, grip onto the teeth of the flywheel and spin the flywheel. The reason why it doesn't go down is because this part here is all rusted, see? So what I have to do is we're going to take some penetrating oil from my friends over at Lucas Oil Products, and we're going to completely saturate this shaft over here with penetrating oil. Then we're going to engage it, right? And I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver and try to get it in between here and kind of help it go down. And that's how you loosen it up so that it'll work. So I've been messing with this a while. I've been saturating this whole area with penetrating oil. Shoved the screwdriver in here. Before I couldn't even get a screwdriver in there, right? So I'm just working it back and forth and spinning it at the same time. Like that. Just trying to push it down. Doesn't seem to be working too well. It's almost like you have to take this whole thing apart, take that gear out, sand the shaft so it freely moves, but once you take this whole thing apart, the brushes close in on each other. It's a pain in the ass, man. So I'm trying to do it this way without taking it apart. It's really just soaking it with penetrating oil, giving it a downward motion over there. Maybe if I work it back and forth, you know, like bang this down to the left and then bang this down to the right, you know, keep doing it back and forth, back and forth. It'll work this shaft clear. Okay, now I've gotten to the point where I'm actually using channel locks to grip the shaft itself, right? And while breaking a couple of screwdrivers, gripping the shaft itself and manually moving the teeth so it rides downwards on the swirly shaft over here. I'll show you what I mean. So it's just moving it. You see, I'm slowly moving it down the shaft. It's so rusty. See, it's starting to move though, see, down the shaft. And now you can see that there's this swirly shaft, there are threads on it. So this has definitely been a pain in the butt, for sure. And I don't even know if it'll work, you know. But I'm making some progress here, because you couldn't stick a screwdriver in here before. And you definitely couldn't see that swirly shaft. So now I'm just taking penetrating oil and allowing it to go down the swirly shaft. Now look where I've gotten it. I've gotten it where I can actually use my fingers and turn it and moving it down. See that? That's how it's supposed to go. The spring here on the shaft pushes the gear upwards onto the threaded swirly shaft. Now it actually moves freely. I think maybe I've done it. I think I've got it! Just gonna roll it down some more so that more of the swirly shaft is exposed. And then drowning it some more vertically so that gravity pulls it down the swirly shaft. I don't know if it's called the swirly shaft. I don't think it is. But I'm getting there. Okay, so now I have it where you can use your hand and push it back up again. Thought I could. So now it's already pulled down, see? But you want to be able to actually put it back up again. And it still has trouble going back up again, see? So that's up. Now it'll go down and engage the thing, the flywheel teeth. but then it has to go back up again by itself, and it doesn't do that, which means the spring is not as strong anymore, or there's still enough resistance in there, like dirt and crap, that is not going to work. So penetrating oil is going to burn up after it spins a while, so I'm going to use some grease. Because it's difficult to apply grease to that area, I'm using some of this red and tacky spray grease from my friends over at Lucas Oil Products. It will require a little bit of a shake, and then you could spray it in there like this, like almost like a gel. So then when heat gets to it, right, it'll dissolve into more of a lubricant and make its way down the shaft. So I'm going to let that sit for a little while. Alright, it's been soaking for quite a while now. Check it out now. See, if you just shake it, it'll go back up again. So I think if the flywheel starts moving from this starting, it will jiggle it back again. See, it goes down. And it does eventually go back up again. So I'm just going to re-soak this thing with grease and penetrating oil, right? Let it sit there for a while. I'm just going to drown it and not mess with it. I'm just going to let it soak for a bit. I'm going to install this again. Just let it soak for a bit. We won't use it for a while, just let it soak. Then I'm sure it'll be all right. Three 3/8 bolts that go back into the holes. The tricky one being the top one, which has to hook onto the gas tank. This bracket here. Very tricky. How it went on here. I'm gonna have to figure it out. Okay, after weaseling that plate back in there, I think I got it on here. Let's see if it cranks. Hey, looks like it works. Nice. So you know what? I'm gonna put some gas in here. See if we can fire this baby up. So we reattached that drive cable, and that's just it. Just reattached it. I didn't really do anything else. I didn't replace it or anything like that. I don't know if that'll work, but just going to give it a try. See if that little bit of movement that it gives it will be able to engage the drive when we need it to. It's on full choke. It's on engine start. It's on full throttle. Just put gas in it. Try the electric start. Maybe the carburetor needs attention after all, because it won't stay running. Only on when I choke it, you know? it stops, though, you know. So it's dragging somehow. The drive, it's not precise. So it's having trouble going because the drive is engaged. So it looks like it needs a little bit of adjustment on the drive. And, well, how about that though? It runs. Stoked. The drive needs to be adjusted underneath because basically once you do engage the drive, right, it seems to stay there. And because it stays there, it puts a load on the friction disc, which makes it want to cut out. On the second hand, the carburetor does seem like it needs to be cleaned because it only starts on full choke, but then when you move it to the middle, right, it does run, right, but not on good load. Then the minute you turn the choke completely off, it wants to stall. So the carburetor, while it's clean enough for it to run on choke, it still needs a cleaning. So the carburetor still needs to be cleaned. You need to put this on its service position next and adjust the drive, friction disc, and the wheel, because this apparatus here, while it does engage it, right, it needs to be lubed up a little bit because once you engage it for it to move, it stays there. And so when you move it around and stuff like that, it puts a drag and a load on the engine and it wants to stall it. Also, the carburetor being dirty has something to do with that as well. But how about that though? We fixed the starter, and this cable actually does work in terms of engaging the drive. So, you know, it wasn't, you know, a whole lot of work, you know. What took a long time was the penetrating oil and the grease, getting it to work, to loosen up the rusty shaft, you know, and the spiral shaft. So, but like I said, I've had good success with fixing the starters and stuff, and if your starter is seized, this is probably exactly what happened. It's that a lack of use, a lot of inactivity causes the rust buildup, especially if you leave your equipment outside, which I never recommend leaving metal outside in the elements, you know. You're going to have problems with your starter if you don't use it for a while because rust is going to build up on that shaft, you know. You just need to disassemble that area, grease it up, work it back and forth to let it start moving a little bit, and then your starter will work, you know. As you can see, we've got this to work today, and it's pretty cool. fix your snowblower starter. I'll see you fellas next time on Mowers and Blowers. Hey guys, support my channel, buy a sticker. Also follow me on Instagram at MowersBlowers. Check out my website, mowersblowers.com. See you guys on my next project. Have a great day. See you guys next time on Mowers and Blowers.